right, let's go have a real look at FlintTown. Alright, so cruising through the neighborhood I live in right now, and this is right on the border of Flint. So this is a small, well, it's actually not that small, it's reasonably sizable, and it's right next to Flint. But when we cross this road here, we'll actually be in Flint. Across the street here is Baker College. It's one of the 3 or so fairly large colleges, including Mott Community College and Kettering University and University of Michigan Flint. It was hoped at one point that basically the colleges would replace General Motors and makes things so much better, but unfortunately that wasn't the case. Things didn't turn out quite the way everybody thought. In recent years, the colleges have lost maybe 30 to 40% of their student body, with the exception of Mott Community College, which is doing pretty well. But this neighborhood here, not really doing all that great. And coming up here, we're entering Flint Proper. Most of the businesses here in Flint, the small businesses, as you can see, are closed. It's just not what it used to be here. We have tons of churches though, tons of churches. Little stores. Domino's Pizza is doing great. This collision shop, which has been here a long time on the right, Dags. Tony's Kmart here on the left was closed. Sherman's Lounge is still open, but it's hard to say how long. The bar on the right, Remington's, was a popular place for people to come for decades and decades, and it actually closed. Los Panchos here is newer, and it is open. I haven't been there. I'm thinking I might stop by. The thing is, most people seem to think that Flint is this crime-ridden town where basically you can't walk the streets without being shot at or killed. And that isn't really the case. if you've watched FlintTown on Netflix, you might have gotten this idea that we live in an outlaw society here and it's the end of the world.
Flint isn't average by a long shot. It's hard to step out of your own skin and realize that this isn't what everyone else is dealing with. I mean, every system has a breaking point, and I don't know where ours is.
Flint, it was a great place to grow up. The home of the middle class.
And then things kind of changed. Then they changed quick.
You're all right, okay?
We are inundated by violence.
Now, I've only watched about half the episodes, and I can tell you it's not pretty. The part we're going through right now here is called South Flint. And South Flint is, I'm not going to say decent because that would be lying. There's another boarded up house right there. But, I mean, if you had to live here, you would probably be okay. Now, this neighborhood here on the right is pretty rough. It's not too bad. I mean, if I had to buy a house here, I was desperate, I probably would. The problem is the city of Flint got a grant from the state of Michigan to help with law enforcement. I don't know if they're going to talk about that in the FlintTown documentary series on Netflix or not, but I'm hoping they do. So the road we're coming up on here is called 12th Street. Again, this neighborhood right here is so-so. It's not the end of the world. But what happened was the city of Flint got this grant, and they were able to get state of Michigan police to come in and police areas, specific areas of Flint, like down on Dorrit Highway where things aren't so great, and North Saginaw. And as a result, it pushed all the crime, prostitution, drugs, more towards the west and south side of Flint. And I do apologize if this is bumpy. I'm trying to hold things steady while we take our cruise here. That crime got pushed, and it's actually right next to my neighborhood now. So if you were to drive basically quarter of a mile, probably a 10-minute walk, you're in one of the toughest neighborhoods. We actually drove through it briefly there. The types of crime we're talking about, though, in this neighborhood isn't what you're seeing on the news, you know, with massive shootings in schools and things like that. It's more domestic crime. There's quite a few shootings in Flint. There's a lot of shootings, and I mean, on average, at least 1 to 2 homicides per week just in the city of Flint. Not talking about Flint Township or Burton, which is a community right next to Flint, and I would say 30 to 40% of Burton is really depressed. Here we got a family here on the left, all wearing Hunter safety orange, driving down the road. Nobody can hunt in the city of Flint, of course, it's illegal. So the road I'm about to turn on now is Saginaw Street. This is the main drag through the heart of Flint. Just went by a stripper club on the left called the 69. Ha ha ha. I think it used to be called LLT, and everybody jokingly nicknamed it Lots of Titties. So this is the what I like to call the mostly gentrified part of Flint. I want to come to a stop here. By the way, when we were driving down Fenton Road, we went past a gas station where one of my instructor friends, who wasn't from Flint and was very ignorant as to how it was in Flint. He actually was beaten at that gas station with 2x4s when he refused to give his watch. I guess he didn't understand, that you should watch your back, and he didn't know what parts of the city were safe. We got the jail on the left-hand side, and that's a popular stop here, as you can imagine. You have to go in there to give your gun permits whenever you buy a new permit or a new gun, firearm. Go into the jail, and on the left-hand side there's a small office you go into. This building on the left here now is the courthouse, which I've visited many times, and I tell you, you ride in the elevator with people and you see the looks on their faces, just forlorn, depressed, just completely depressed. It's really sad. All kinds of reasons people go into the courthouse, of course. So I call this part of Flint, still in South Flint, the gentrified part of Flint. This part of Flint is heavily policed. They've rented rent-a-cops, and I do mean that literally. They're just basically a security company that patrols downtown Flint, and then they have maybe one or two sworn officers. I think it makes things feel safer. I think this is a beautiful part of town. I come in here and hang out all the time. I'm not going to say all the time. I broke my leg, so I haven't been able to get downtown as much as I'd like to. Not everything is negative, FlintTown just shows us as a embattled town. They make it look like a war zone, and I do agree that certain parts of the city are definitely suffering. I think one of the problems with society today is the answer to them is to get more police. Now here's some illegal jaywalkers. I love it. Just kind of standing there in the middle of the road, doing whatever they want. And there's another police officer in front of Churchill's. So we've seen 3 police officers right here in downtown. Actually 4, because one of them was driving. 2 of them were driving. And on the left is the riverfront banquet center and residence hall for the colleges. We're passing Riverbank Park on the left and the right. It's actually a really nice park. I'll come down here and go walking with my friend in the summer, even in the winter, honestly. And we're kind of on the edge now of good and bad, but I do come down to the city of Flint. I like Flint, and I don't know. I live here. I feel safe in this city. I know that sounds crazy, but I know the places we should go and shouldn't go. On the left here is a McDonald's that was closed about a decade ago. So now we're easing into worse parts of the city, but before we do, on the right hand side here is what used to be an old hotel. It was beautiful. It still is. This company bought it and they remodeled the hotel. They remodeled this hotel, and like I say, they kind of gentrified it. So you're looking at $2,000 apartments here in this hotel. Kind of crazy, but that's the way the ball bounces. So here there is a popular bar on the left called Soggy Bottom. There used to be a grocery store here that closed on the left-hand side. It says local grocer now. I'm not sure what the deal is. It looks more like a restaurant in there, so I'm not sure what's going on. The road we're about to turn on used to be called 3rd Avenue, but they renamed it University Drive, because we're going to cruise down here and we're going to go by I'm going to go by Kettering University, which is another university here that does engineering, and they're actually a good university to attend. Unfortunately, Kettering was suffering because they couldn't pull in enough students, so they were looking for international students and anything they could get. There was fear that Kettering was going to close down. It hasn't, so they've managed to survive. I mean, they're doing what they can do. This part of town here is a mix. We've got good and really bad. They've tried in the city of Flint to, and I hate to use this term, but it's partly true, gentrify this part of town, but you know, it's been dubious at best as far as that working. And the Children's Museum here, which is a really popular place, it's a cool place to take kids. And you'll see on the very right and actually left are Kettering University buildings. The building to the left, which is about to go out of the frame, is the University Commons for students, and then on the left there, that building is where all the courses are taken. And the library is there, offices. Pretty much most of what Kettering does is there. Here's another local school. The school buildings in Flint are ancient. This is the John Vianney School. They're really old. I lived in the city of Flint itself for over a decade, and my sons went to Flint schools. They were getting way behind because the curriculum and instruction just wasn't up to par in comparison to other schools. So eventually, you know, I kept working and going to college, getting an education, bettering myself. I worked really, really, really hard, and I was able to get a job, decent job, and we moved out of Flint into Burton. And Burton, parts of Burton are really good, parts of it are not so good. So we're on Flushing Road here now. And as a result, when my kids went to the new school, they actually went to Davison Community Schools. We were told our students were behind, our sons were behind by 1 year, and they had two choices. They could retake an entire year and go back, or, and there's a house on the left all burned out, and another one and another one. You see those? They could retake the year they just did, or they could come to school every day, hour and a half, I think it was 2 hours early. They would be fed breakfast, and then they would do this makeup class that they had to do, and this took a year. So for over a year, my sons had to do this to get caught up in the curriculum. And unfortunately, it was really hard on them. And what was really cool is they fed them this really healthy breakfast. And I thought that was neat. Now here, this Flint Police mini station, I want you to take a look at this, okay? I'm going to stop here. I want you to look at this mini station. Completely abandoned, I might add. The mini station concept, we used to have them all over in the city of Flint, but they did away with them. So my sons worked hard to get caught up so they could have a decent education. It was a lot of work. And I was proud of them for that. And my oldest went on to get a really good job. He's married now. My middle boy served in the Army Reserves for a while, and he's doing well. He's about to get his own apartment. And my youngest has his own apartment. He's going to college full-time and working full-time. Not afraid to do the job that he needs to do. Hard work is what it's all about, believe it or not, still. There's, again, closed buildings. They're everywhere. And straight ahead is a boarded up house. What has happened in Flint, it's actually, I'm going to say, understandable from an economic standpoint. Tragic from a human standpoint. You know, all the auto industry here started to leave and go to Mexico and countries in South America, moved all their factories, closed their places down. So basically they've got this plant, it's closed, the ground is contaminated, there is no tax revenue coming from it. And if you look over to the left, I don't know if you can see it, but there are thousands of brand new cars sitting in that parking lot. So they just used the parking lot for storage of new vehicles. And so what happened was, economically, things became bad for the city of Flint. At the same time, in the state of Michigan, Michigan's been in a recession for decades. At this point, we actually were in a recession long before the United States went into a recession. So once the United States hit their recession in 2008, where we were looking at, you know, some really tough times, Michigan had already been in a recession, so the housing market collapse starting in 2008 just devastated Michigan, and as a result also the city of Flint, which was already in a recession. We had a state recession, we had a city that was dying off because of its tax base leaving. So the city itself, they would raise taxes, but there was nothing to raise taxes on. The county was a separate governmental entity. By the way, the part of town we're in right now, if I'm not mistaken, is called Carriage Town. And here's the thing about Carriage Town. It's a historic community. So as a result, if you want to own a house in Carriage Town, you must restore the home to its basically late 18th, early, 19th century standard when these homes were most likely built. So we got this white house here. It's all boarded up. You want to buy this house, you could probably buy it for $5,000. But we're in the historic Carriage Town district, so you have to restore that house to the original house construction. You can't put in new vinyl windows or any of that stuff. It all has to be these windows that were wood, the original construction, and you could spend, you know, $50,000, $100,000 to restore your house. So guess what happens? I bet you can guess. Nobody buys the houses. What a surprise. So they languish and they rot. That's how the city of Flint does things. Instead of saying, you know what, we'd like you to buy this house and restore it any way you are capable of to maintain the city standards, that is not what happens. What's the hope for Flint? I don't know. It's tough. Flint is its own government entity. It doesn't get support from By the way, this is the location of the famous sit-down strike, General Motors sit-down strike, which started it all with the unions and all that. The plant's no longer here, of course. Tore the plant down and built this building here. Flint is its own governmental entity, and they don't get help from Genesee County, really. They're getting that grant from the state of Michigan to help with policing, and if they didn't, I think things would be way worse. That's for sure. Thanks a lot for watching with me and taking my tour of Flint with me. I had a good time. In some ways, things are as bad as you see on that documentary, but in other ways, they're not. It really depends where you are in the city of Flint and how things are for you personally. But the city can't help you a whole lot. That's the problem. The government's failed the citizens. Partly they're to blame, partly they're not. I hate to say it. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, like and subscribe. I'm expecting you to. And share it. Drop me a comment. Let me know what you think. We'll do it again. Maybe in the summer. I'll take you downtown and we'll go through walking through Riverbank Park and with my friend, and we'll have a chat. Thanks for watching. See you next time on Fast Gadgets.
This video was made possible with support from viewers like you. If you find this video useful, consider becoming a patron for as little as $1 a month at patreon.com/FastGadgets.